Okay, this sounds great. Well, thank you for the intro, Taylor.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here and excited for the Q&A because we're in the stage of AI and there's so many questions. But let me just start. I want to kind of start and level set um, uh, where we are in the world of AI. So, sorry, I'm just getting all my screens organized here. Where we are. So I started a company called Enhanced AI about 4 years ago. Where was I before that? I have done work for Disney and Microsoft, HBO, Citigroup. Biggest thing I've done is at Amazon, at least biggest impact worldwide. I was running a platform for all third-party sellers that generated about $65 billion annually. And then I built a new thing for them that generated another $1 billion annually. And then I was tired of making money for Jeff Bezos, so I left Amazon and moved on to entrepreneurship. And I've done multiple things in entrepreneurship space, but I've been basically in technology I've been very interested since I was a kid. And about 4 years ago, I got introduced to an API called it was to something called generative AI. And it was GPT-3. So this is before ChatGPT even existed. They were working on it. And but when I got introduced to this API, I thought, oh, this technology is pretty incredible, and I want to dive a lot deeper into it and try and understand it more. So I want to start here and kind of level set AI and talk about AI, how it actually functions, and try and distill a lot of misnomers out there about it, and then how we actually make it apply in a business. So this reality check over this last year, MIT did a study, came out in I think September or August, and they did a study over the last year, and about 95% of these AI implementations in businesses have failed to produce any ROI. So they're saying about 30 to 40 billion dollars invested and have failed. And there's a very real reason for that. And I could have told you that that was definitely going to be the case. Um, Having been close to this technology and what it actually does and what the limits are. It's not magic, it's just pure technology. And we'll go about it. We'll talk about that in a second. So interesting, if you look at this whole industry, folks have been around. I see some folks with some gray hairs like I do. So you've been around since the 80s and 90s. One of the early things in the 80s was like, hey, there's PCs everywhere. And this Robert Swallow is like, hey, you can see computers everywhere except for in the productivity numbers. Our PC's actually even good for us. And now we take it for granted, right? We're like, well, of course you need a PC to do stuff. But these early days, it's hard to actually implement it into the processes. And that's exactly where we are with AI. And part of the insights that we're seeing and that we're hearing from people is, hey, I need a developer to change things. We've spent a couple $1 million and no business impact. I can't update workflows with IT. Our pilot worked, but production it failed. And there's lots of reasons why it's hard. The three main reasons to deploy it in a business and use it in a business, or the three difficulties are: one, the accuracy problem. AI has hallucinations, as many people have seen. There's a lot of tech dependency of relying on tech teams. And then the business users, the ones who are actually using the system, don't have the actual control. And that's been something that we have really focused on solving since day one. So before even the study came out, et cetera. But I want to teach three secrets to AI about how it actually works. And I want to go in there so we can kind of level set of how AI works, and then we can build on top of that. So one of the things, the three are basically, it deals with patterns, there's memory problems, and context is everything. So I'll tell you a little bit more what that means. So AI is a pattern machine. The technology is basically trained on trillions of data points of patterns. So all it does is, if you say Mary had a little, it's trained on enough completions of that to say lamb is the result. And that's how the technology really works. It's just patterns. It's been trained on patterns. And so the only reason that you're getting a response is because it's been trained on, hey, this is kind of how that response should happen, because it's scraping the whole internet and seeing how people respond to things, or corporate information, et cetera. And that's how these little LLMs work, like on little brains. So um, another misnomer is that a lot of people use AI and they think it can do math. It can't do math because there's no pattern. So if it read the equation 1 + 1 = 2 enough times, it knows that 1 + 1 is 2. But the chances of it reading an equation of 105,061,000, blah blah blah, and then knowing the answer is very obscure. So AI actually cannot do math. The LLMs can't do math. It's because it's trained. The technology is a pattern-based technology, so it can't do math. And I'll speak to that in a second. So the other part is that there's a memory problem with AI. It actually has no memory at all of anything that you've ever talked about with it. And if it does, it's just faking the memory. And that is one of the interesting things that came out with chatbots, is OpenAI said, okay, we're going to fake this memory thing. AI is what they call a stateless machine, which means it doesn't hold any knowledge in the machine itself. When you chat with it, the user message goes into the AI LLM, and then it responds to you, right? And then the next time you do another question, you send it in, it actually sends in your first question and its response and your second question to give itself context. But it's a fresh entry every single time it actually passes this in. And guess what? The third time you're going to send a message, it actually sends everything back in again. This is why, has anyone ever talked with AI for a while and it starts to forget what you said at the beginning of the conversation? That's because it starts cutting off the beginning of your message and it can't send everything back in every single time. So it loses that context. So AI is actually, it's a stateless machine, which means it has no memory. And every time you actually talk to the LLM, it's a fresh instance of you talking to it. Now, know that when you're using it in a chat interface, the engineers have built these kind of things on top to help your chat interface feel like it's a fluid chat conversation. But when you're actually hitting the core brain itself, it's always fresh every single time. So that's actually how they fake this memory problem. One of the things I like to say, and this is when dealing with AI, it's like my 8-year-old son who, if I ask him, this is when I prompt an AI, right? If I ask him to go clean his room, he's going to go clean a few things and come back and be like, hey, it's kind of ready, Dad. And I'm going to look and I'll be like, well, you still have your Legos out. You still haven't made your bed. Because I'm not exact and precise to him. With AI, you have to be very precise in how you interact with it. Now, if I give him 5 things to clean on his room, he's a great kid. He'll do all 5 of those things, and then he'll come back and his room's clean. So if you're really exact in how you talk with AI, it'll give you really great responses back. Now, the opposite is also true. I could give him 30 things to do to clean his room, and he's just going to get confused. And he'll be like, he'll come back and, hey, my room's kind of clean. He'll do 3 or 4 of the things and get confused because I gave him too much information. And many times we think that we can just load in loads of information into AI and it's going to be accurate, but it's actually not that smart. It's way too much context for it, and I could go into more details why. So that's why the third secret is that context is everything with AI. You need to give the information it needs when it needs it, or else it's going to get overloaded with too much information. So this is like the simple way I put this. The last 40 years, we have been dealing with the left brain of technology. The technology we've been using, it's precise, it's specific, it can do calculations and formulas. It's great at storage, etc. AI is the right brain of technology. So it's procedural, it's creative, and it follows patterns, which is completely different. And we try and use AI on the right brain like we do the left brain, where we're like, hey, do this math for me. It can't do the math. So what it has to do is come up with an equation. Like someone asked me, hey, can I here's a million rows of customer data. Can I get the average order value out of these million rows? And AI actually cannot do that. There's no way it knows how to do that. But what it can do is it could write the equation for you. And then what it does is it sends that to a subsystem that does the math for you. And then the math gets sent back into the AI brain that says, oh, here's the answer, and here was the math we used to do it. And then the chat responds to you with that. So it's kind of a faking when you think it's doing math. It's actually sending it to another system and kind of bringing it back. So it's pretty critical to understand like the foundations of how it works. Now, the last piece is kind of where the whole industry is at, is building this corpus callosum where we're talking the right and left side of the brain are talking together. So just if there's three things you remember is that AI is a pattern machine. It has memory problems. And so you have to break things up in context and small bites for actually it to be able to use the information you're giving it. Now we've built over 1,000 agents, and there's 5 categories that it's really useful for in your business. So I would pick one as you're looking at your business of getting an ROI out of AI and focus on that one. So the 5 are: 1, document generation. So we have people who write reports. Their company writes reports every day, hundreds of reports. Guess what? Those take an hour to write. You can create an AI system that writes that report in 3 minutes. And we've done that for medical companies, for legal companies, etc. So document generation is one really useful thing with AI. Number 2 are chatbots or assistants. So, customer service for external chatbots or sometimes internal chatbot systems. Number 3, data transformation. If you have a lot of documents, we have someone who has 500,000 documents from Charles Schwab with their customers, and they're like, hey, we need to transform all this information into a database. We've created an AI system that extracts it and then puts it all into a nice database. That's data transformation. And then it's also good at analysis and then general process automation. That you might get an email and then you want to take AI and push that into a CRM. But those are kind of the 5 big categories we found AI is really useful in. So what have we done? We've built and seen this early on, we built this platform called Flux Prompt. And what we do in the platform is we're connected to all of the AI systems inside of our platform. So you can use OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, Claude, etc. And then you can basically step through and orchestrate with your business, what are the steps that I do? And that's actually the most critical part, is saying, hey, as a business, what is this task I'm really wanting to automate? And it shouldn't be the one-off task. As you've seen and used ChatGPT and things like Perplexity and other models, if you're just going to kind of do research and talk with a chatbot, like those are great options to do and use. But if you have a process you want to automate that needs to be done more than once, and it needs a really high degree of accuracy, that's where our system comes into play. And this could be scraping news every day and sending you an email. It could be pulling your customer list every day, looking for them in the news. If they're in the news, doing more research about their competitors and why they were in the news, and then writing a customer response email to them of like, hey, we saw you were in the news. How can we help, right? Or using AI to analyze if you could help them in some way. Like, that's a process. And so the way you make AI useful in your business is to actually figure out the processes in your business that are repeatable and that you're doing over and over and over again, and then build these processes in this multi-step workflow. And there's several other platforms you could look at. I highly recommend ours because it's built for business users and not for tech people. The other ones would be N8N. OpenAI launched one called Agent Kit. And then obviously ours is fluxprompt.ai. But ours is built much more for the business user and less technical person. So how easy is it to build one of these? Let me see if I can load up just one of these really quickly. But we have built, for example, the other day we had someone with a big database, and we built a chatbot in 15 minutes that the chatbot would take the user's query, convert it into a SQL query, pull the data from their database, restrict it to only 1,000 responses, and then send that back to the chatbot and then the AI would take those 1,000 responses and then come up with its final response from those from that database query. But as a very, as a simple workflow, I'm just going to let me just jump in and create a 1, 2, 3 workflow. It's pretty straightforward to, in here you have, I'm not going to do a big product demo, but you could do something like, hey, have the AI, these text generators come up with responses, and you say, hey, I want a system. I want to use Perplexity. I want to say, hey, what is the weather today? And it's going to go run. Sorry. And it'll pull something up like that. But then on this system, I can create a front-end user interface that you could put in the location, the weather, the date, and then it will pull up like a nice response of what the weather is, and you can make it display further out there. So I'm not going to go too much more because of time, but I did want to show we do have an automated. You could check out this SOW generator we created. That basically you could take a transcript from a call, throw it in here, and it'll create a whole SOW for you. You may not have phones, so let me grab the URL here on this one. And I can load this in here. But it basically this generator, you can see this on my screen here, right? You put in your email, your name, and the caller meeting summary, your timeline, name of the parties if you want, or any other notes. You press submit, and you will get in your inbox a nice SOW for that potential client. And this is just kind of like a nice to have little giveaway that we crafted here that someone could use, you folks could use. And I'll grab the URL before we're done and post in our Zoom here. This is what it looks like. Hey, your statement of work, etc. And then lastly, I know we got to stop, but there's only 5% of these that have been succeeding over the last year. We're fortunate to have all of ours, the way we're building them, be very successful for folks. We do teach courses, and we help train people as well on what we're doing. But ultimately, I'm just happy to be here and be a sounding board for any questions that people have of how to build AI stuff or the frameworks of building these into making these work inside of businesses. So I'll stop. I don't want to take more time than I'm allotted here. So.
You're good, Brad. Thank you so much. Super interesting, super helpful. I would encourage everybody to throw questions into the chat. We can kind of queue up there. And while you're writing your questions in, Brad, what would you suggest as, well, what are the biggest mistakes people are making as they are trying to implement or use AI in their businesses?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question. I would say one of the biggest things, and I can stop sharing and jump back in if I need to. I would say when you say implement in their businesses, one of the biggest mistakes is that they may have general ideas of like, well, the biggest mistake is people say, I just want AI in my business. And you're like, well, what does that mean? What do you even want with AI? And they're like, I just need AI. It's like, well, no, you don't. Like, AI is a solution, right? What AI should do is two things. It should drive revenue, or it should drive more profit. Like one of those two. That's it. And if you can't find a process where you're going to drive more revenue or profit, then don't use it, or don't try and use it in your business. Now, there's a lot of interesting things, as you break that down. When you look at like more profit, you could say, hey, or even more revenue, you can say, well, how well do our sales teams know the customers that they're actually talking to? And you could use AI to give them the information that they might need while live on those phone calls, right? Like, so you could break down your business in lots of ways and look at that, how AI could help you there. But it's really good for researching. It's great for automatically generate documentation, like I said, and the chatbot assistance. That's really practical use of AI. And OpenAI, most people just use ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude. And those are fantastic tools for a certain set of your business. It's not for your whole business and your operation side. And just recognize that. And so if you want to start operationalizing different parts of your business, you do need to expand out your breadth of the tool set that you might use to do that. You got to go beyond just the chat systems.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Crystal put in a question for document generation. Is there any concerns of faux generation that is inaccurate?
Yes, that is the number one concern, actually. So we have built, so I kind of showed you just really quickly those couple of steps. The reason I broke down AI is that you can't, when it gets inaccurate, it's when you're giving it too much information and you're loading it with too much and you expect it to do too much. So we've got 99% accurate, 99.9% accurate medical report documentations that are spitting out, big legal documents that are going for big class action lawsuits. But the way we get 99% accuracy is you have to break out each section of the document and what you're doing in the data source that's actually being used for those sections of the document. You can't just expect AI to magically do this all for you. I could go into lots of technical reasons of like the way they're faking it, but again, there's a lot of faking in this space right now. And they're faking some of these conclusions, but at the end of the day, the way you get accurate is you really have to break up these contexts and the pieces that you're getting. And if you break it up, then AI is smart enough. It's really powerful and smart when you have, the right kind of context that it needs to resolve that. So yes, the number one thing actually is in the hallucination or the inaccuracy of those document generations. And there are proven ways at this point to be able to make those accurate. And depends on what you're loading in and how you do it. But yeah, there's definitely ways to do that. And I'd be happy to, it's probably longer than this conversation to go into to explain how to orchestrate those. But it's a fantastic ROI. We've seen lots of folks implement this. It's typically like 30x ROI once you put these implementations in. And that's like on a rolling basis, year after year, month after month, when you get the documentation piece in place. And so that 30x goes more, right? We've been doing this for about a year and a half, the documentation in particular, and we're seeing these ROIs really high. So yeah, that's a good call out.
That's great. Thank you. Chris asked, for analysis and reporting, what data sets are you able to pull from?
Yeah, so our system is designed from the very beginning to be extremely flexible. We can pull from any data source that you have. We have SQL database connectors to pull in to your private, to any particular servers that you have. We can pull from the web. We have all the web scraping components inside the platform. We even have another method where if you don't want to pull from within the platform, you could actually push to the platform. And every single flow you build is also an API. So you could send the data into this API call, it will process it, and then it'll send the information back out to you. So however you want to orchestrate, we've made it extremely flexible to orchestrate any way that your teams might want to, even email, right? We have every flow that's generated has its own email address. So we use it all the time. If someone sends us an email and we want to check something, we forward it on to the agent, the bot that does a checking of that email and the content in there, and then it'll send the information back to us, whether it's good, valid, etc. So we've tried to make it very flexible, the implementations, but then again, you can connect anywhere you want across the whole web, the web, API calls, databases, etc.
Awesome. Thanks for addressing that, Brad. Susan asked, how do you see AI moving forward in the short term and in the long term?
Yeah, I see the problem. So the core fundamental problem with the technology is, I don't want to get too technical, is this context thing that, again, that corpus callosum, what connects your right and left side of the brain, and how that's orchestrated. And I see the technology trying to solve that problem, and they've been trying to solve it for a while, which means at some point, hopefully you don't need to orchestrate these systems, but we may never get there. I don't see AGI anytime soon. To be honest, I know some people talk about it, but I've talked with a lot of other folks. They're like, yeah, it's a hoax. AI is just not smart enough to have the context it needs to be able to do, this ultimate AGI system, which is like, Terminator robots, not necessarily with bad mind, but or bad intentions, but like where it can just autonomously understand everything. As anyone even saw that those robots that came out, those home robots, and it's in like the Neo or something, and even those are controlled by humans for the next 6 months because they don't have enough data to even, they're learning on patterns, right? It's just not there yet. Like there's so much pattern and pattern recognition. And then beyond the patterns, you need like a processing brain that AI is just not, it's a different technology, I guess I should say. And maybe I've gone into too much of that. So from a very practical business sense, I think the immediate future is finding ways of identifying ways in your business where you can orchestrate automations and support systems, right? So AI, the agents are great because they can support people with the latest information, the latest data. You can say, hey, I want my weekly report based on these 5 clients, and it could go through and grab the right information, create a nice report for you. Like that's like very practical use of AI in the near term.
Awesome. Alexander asks, on media type for context, are there use cases for Flux Prompt where audio or video make up the data sets that apps can be built on top of?
Yeah, 100%. Yep, we have text generator systems, audio generator systems, and video generator systems, and image systems. Those are generators and absorption systems. So just before this call earlier today, I was fixing up our YouTube transcriber where you can put a YouTube link in and it pulls all the information out of that YouTube video and it like formats it in a nice way. So if you ever have a long YouTube video, you just want like a nice summary. Google started throwing out summaries, but they're never useful for me. Like I don't like how they're doing them. So I've just created my own. And it took me, 5 minutes to create just the YouTube summarizer. So pulling in video data, we have a client that's streaming in hundreds of hours every single day from each of their stores. And we're streaming in all the information, processing all of it, and then spitting it out both in reports and into a chat bot. So a store owner can talk about the information that they just streamed in hundreds of conversations every single day from this data source. So like, yes, all data sources in media are all flexible enough to be able to be pulled into the systems.
Awesome. Brad, a tactical question. What have you seen with your clients in terms of how they're using AI? What are maybe 3 examples of very simple actions or use cases in a company that we could implement in an afternoon or in an hour? Like, what would you suggest be the first 2 or 3 areas that we would attack with AI in our businesses?
Yeah. Okay. An hour afternoon versus like a week or more. Maybe I'll speak to 3 swiftly. The first one is we helped a large Fortune 500 company. They had someone internally, and this is her department. And she has all the specs to all their devices, and she has a spreadsheet that has all these specs and everything. And people just ask her. It takes up 20% of her day. And they're like, "Well, what about this one?" And she just notices she gets asked about these specs all the time. We took that and we pulled it in and created a chat bot that they can now all reference that is even better, more accurate than she was. She was, as we were testing it, she's like, wait, no, that's wrong. No, wait, I'm wrong. And then anyway, so it was extremely accurate. It's like, hey, people are asking questions about stuff all the time. Pull that in as the data source, connect it to a chatbot, and publish it. And it's really easy to publish chatbots in our system too. It's just a link, and you can you can embed it in a web page or have it standalone. So that was like a really simple one that we did within an hour or 2. And that was teaching her how to do it while we did it within that hour or 2. Another one's a little more elaborate is that I mentioned the medical company. We have a medical company that it helps folks diagnoses whether folks can be on disability or not. And so they write these reports that go to Social Security. And now these reports typically take an hour to write. The reports are made up of a doctor's transcripts of their notes, of a nurse's notes, and then the patient's background history. And normally the typist takes all that and types up the report. we've created a process where now it's just a simple UI, and they drag all 4 of those artifacts, including a transcript, right? And other ones, they drag them in and press go, and it pulls out all the information from there, and it generates a document. And that one you can, that would probably take a week to do, to orchestrate and put that one in place. And then getting that 99% accurate, like the owner like changes formatting a little bit and all sorts of like little things. But that one, that's just another process. One more, the last one's a little more complex implementation, but we have someone who does bids for, or they get marketing. They need to do like a marketing analysis from their clients, and so they're on the phone call with their clients of like, hey, what should the next our marketing assets be for next week, or what should we focus on? So we built a system with them, and it's in Slack, and a person in Slack says, here's my transcript, and I need my next marketing analysis report. And what it does is they paste it in, and then what it takes the transcript, and then it goes, looks at that client and all the stuff they've done in the past, and the analytics of like how well they performed, and then it writes up a new marketing brief for their team, to be able to take the marketing brief with ideas, etc., and then create the marketing assets they need from there. So that marketing brief concept just took them a long time, and they're saving, I think, $20,000 a month, based on their size, of like time they used to spend writing just marketing briefs for their customers based on this information. And that one took maybe, it probably took 4 weeks to put in because of some of the technical things of hooking into Slack and some of their other Google Drive systems, etc.
Thanks for those examples. We've got one other question here in the chat, from Mike. If AI eventually takes over menial and other jobs, how will society adjust to accommodate people who are unemployed?
That's a really meaningful question. I think that we're all trying to understand. It is, anytime there's like a big revolution shakeup, like the Industrial Revolution, even the farming kind of revolution that's happened over the years, there's always a shakeup of jobs. One of the interesting things is that I use AI to just basically speed up what I would normally be doing myself, and just to do more with it. And I've heard a lot of people say, hey, AI is not going to take your job. It's the person that knows AI that will take your job, right? I think there's a tremendous amount of efficiency gains we're seeing, but as we've seen with human nature in the past, like there's always way more to do, and we're going to come up with a lot more to do. The question is, what we're used to as work behind a computer and a desktop that we've known for the last 30 years, 40 years, is that the future of work, right? That wasn't work before the PC revolution came, right? Before that, there was a lot of documents and filing and reports in physical paper, and then that all moved to the PCs. Now, if work is no longer in front of a PC every day, what does that mean? That's where I start thinking forward, of what is the future. Is maybe it's not typing, maybe it's not these tasks that I'm doing. AI can do my specific task, but I'm still orchestrating. I'm still telling it what to do it, how to do it. AI is really good with patterns, by the way. And I could go off about that. But if you have a framework that you like to use and work with, use that with AI, because then it's actually going to produce information from your framework and do it in a really good job. And if your framework is better than the other guy, you might win out that bid or that customer or that client, right? So that's my initial response, knowing that it's here, and the most innovative folks are finding ways of using it in their jobs and trying to be productive with it.
Awesome. Brad, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I would ask everybody, so we're as I mentioned before, we're a happy user of Flux Prompt. And after this discussion, I'd be interested to know how many of you are interested or will go look at what they've built with Flux Prompt. So again, we don't have any reason to ask other than my curiosity of how many people have been inspired today to say, okay, I'm going to go use, or I'm going to go check out this tool, or at least even a new AI tool. Put a 1 in the chat if you are, and a 0 if you're not. I'm just curious to see the reactions and level of interest. But Brad, this has been phenomenal. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And if people want to reach out to you, is LinkedIn best?
Probably not. My LinkedIn has become a spam machine. So I would say email is probably best for me. So I'll put it in here, Brad at enhanced dot AI. And here we go. I posted 3 different links, one for Flux Prompt, our course that we do for business executives, and then my email there. So definitely reach out to me or our team. And yeah, happy to have these conversations. I'm just excited about this space since the beginning. It's kind of the future of technology, and it's so fun to see how people do it because people implement the most amazing things with this technology. I'm surprised every time. But as a last anecdote, we had a brand manager in Kimberly-Clark create a system that reverse engineered the branding of other brands that were competing with her so that she could create a consumer profile for their brand that they were doing inside of Kimberly-Clark. So the AI reverse engineered their and found the gaps in the market and did this stuff. I was just like, that's so awesome. Like, I'm sure there's
Amazing.
many more ideas like that out there, but it's just awesome.
Fantastic. Well, Brad, thanks again. Thanks everybody for being here. And please look for our next meeting. I'm thinking next week we won't have one because of Thanksgiving, I believe. But then first week of December, we'll be back here. So looking forward to seeing you all. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks all. We'll see you.